Hey everybody, this is Mr. Anderson here. We have a sub in class today, so I made a couple videos for you to check out while I'm gone. I'll be back on Thursday. But this is the first of two videos. Remember, after you check out this video, there's one more posted in Schoology. You got to check out both of them. Feel free to pause the video, stop the video, start it, whatever you need, whenever you need it. I'm going to go through some more factoring examples in this first one. Not going to take us too long, but like I said, there are two videos. I just didn't want to run over the recordable length here. Check it out. We are going to go through this first problem here. We did the top one yesterday. I guess we're going to do the second one today. So we got the second problem there, the x squared plus x minus 6, and our job is to factor this. And remember, all the trinomials we're going to have are going to factor into two binomials. So here's the question we're asking. We're asking ourselves, hey, what are the factors of -6 that add up to a positive 1? Okay, so here we go over here. I'm going to write down the factors of 6, I guess. Maybe I should erase that bottom line. Do it like that. It's not working. The eraser's not working. That's all right. Factors of 6. There we go. All right. Factors of 6 are going to be 1 and 6, and basically 2 and 3. All right. Now here's the deal. My middle term, and I can see this right here, my middle term is positive. That means the bigger number is going to be the positive number. The smaller number is going to be the negative number when I go ahead and do this factoring. So which of those two factor pairs add up to 1? It's going to be this one right here. So the x squared is always going to factor into x and x, and in this case we have x minus 2 and x plus 3. Recall that I can go through and I can FOIL this to check my answer, and if I do so correctly and combine my like terms, I better wind back up with the trinomial that I started with. All right? Next question, a couple U tries. Why don't you go ahead and pause this right now and then start it again after you've made an attempt. All right, in this particular problem, we are checking to see the factors of 4. Okay, and the factors of 4 that add up to -5. Well, just like we saw a moment ago, we're going to factor into two binomials. The x squared is going to factor into x and x. Everybody hopefully can make it that far. But then what are the factors of 4? Well, they are only 1 and 4 or 2 and 2. Now here's where I got to know a little bit about multiplication. The only way I can have two numbers multiply to be a multiply to be a positive, but sum to be a negative is if they are both negative. So which one of those factor pairs, -1 and -4, or -2 and -2, add up to -5? And the answer is that one right there. So I'm going to go with -1 and -4. Okay, and there's my factoring. All right, next you try is going to be the, and again, if you didn't pause this and try this one on your own, you should do that first. But this one's going to be x squared plus 3x minus 18. So I want, in this problem, factors of 18. Okay, and the factors of 18 are 1 and 18. They are 2 and 9, and they are 3 and 6. All right, two numbers multiply to be a negative, but they add up, in this case, to a positive 3. Here's where I'm looking right there to see that. All right, so what does that mean? That means the bigger number's got to be positive, the smaller number's got to be negative. And if you haven't seen this, right, or if you haven't figured this out, I'm writing all the smaller numbers on the left-hand side. So, well, what does that mean? Well, here we go. We factor. The x squared factors into x and x. And which of those factor pairs, -1 and 18, -2 and 9, or -3 and 6, which add up to positive 3? And the answer is this bottom one. And order doesn't matter. I can put them any way I please down here into this, these two binomials. Okay? We're going to jump down into the bottom, the factoring special products that you see at the bottom of page 16 there. And if you read that, it's going to give you a little insight into where we're going here, right? We're dealing with something in this case that does not have a middle term. Some of you are going to appreciate the chance to rewrite this like this: x squared plus 0x minus 25. So if that's the case, then what do we got going on? Well, we're looking for factors of 25. But in this case, we're looking for factors of 25 that add up to 0, right? That's why I put this 0x in there. Okay, so what do we got? We got 1 and 25, and we got 5 and 5, and I believe those are the only factors of 25. But in this case, it's going to be negative 25, and we're looking for sum to 0. So one's got to be negative, one's got to be positive, right? Okay, in this one, is that going to work? Nope, it's not, because they got to add up to 0. That would add up to 24 or negative 24. This is going to be the factor pair that's going to work out for me. All right. Some of you are gonna recognize that perfect square, that 25 is a perfect square, and you know that it's going to factor into that sum and difference. And you might recall that from Algebra 1. What I'm saying is that this and this are going to be the same. The only thing they're going to differ in is sign. All right, on to this next one. We're going to see something very, very similar here. All right, and in this one we have the same setup where I'm adding a 0, and now I want factors of 64. 64 is a little bit more complex when we get to making our list, but check this out. We got 1 and 64, we have 2 and 32, we have, let's see, 3 doesn't go into 64, 4 does though, 4 and 16, 5 does not, 6 does not, 8 does, it's 8 and 8, and oh, ding, 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 8 and 8 are going to be the only things that multiply to be negative 64 and add up to 0 when I take and I put a negative there, right? Because negative 8 times positive 8 is negative 64, and those things, of course, sum to 0, right? So x squared factors into x and x, and then we have x minus 8 and x plus 8. All right? Guys and gals, if you're ready, go ahead and turn the page. I'm going to do some of my notes that I got sitting here, and I'm going to turn to page 17 in our. All right, and 17 starts with a couple of checkpoints. So if you need to, or if you're ready, pause and try these two things. If you're not ready yet, then back up, rewatch the first couple of minutes of this video. But here we go. We have a problem x squared plus 7x plus 12. So I want factors of 12. All right, factors of 12 are 1 and 12, 2 and 6, and 3 and 4. Now, in this case, it's positive 12, so they're either both going to be positive or both going to be negative. All right, but I specifically want factors that add up to 7, and I see these two as being both positive numbers that multiply to positive 12 and are going to add to positive 7. All right. On to the next problem. Over here is number 2, and this is going to be one where maybe it's helpful to rewrite as x squared plus 0x minus 81. If you don't want to do that, though, you don't have to, because maybe you recognize that 81 is a perfect square, so there's no need to go ahead and do that necessarily if you don't need to. Factors of x squared are going to be x and x, so maybe you want to factor like that. And then we have x minus 9, because the perfect square factors of 81 are positive and negative 9, right? Guys and gals, last problem on this page, we're going to use the zero product property, and if you read what we have right here, it just is basically saying that if you have two things that multiply to be 0, then one or both of the things need to be 0. All right, and we have a situation where we have this in factored form, and that's really pretty nice. It means that we don't need to look for the factors of 8 that multiply, excuse me, the factors of negative 8 that add up to 7. It's already done, but here's the deal, right? I'm going to take this thing, this x squared plus 7x minus 8, and I'm going to write it in factored form like this. But then the zero product property says, hey, this right here is one factor multiplied by a second factor that multiplies to be 0. And that said, what I'm able to do now is I can then say, well, if that's the case, then either x minus 1 equals 0 or x plus 8 equals 0, and that allows me to solve, right? Add 1 to both sides here, and I can get x equals 1, and I can subtract, I can subtract 8 from both sides here, and I get x equals negative 8, and now what I'm able to do is solve a quadratic, and that's something we're going to go further in depth with in the next video, so please check that thing out immediately following this, but that is one of the most powerful things that we're going to get out of Chapter 4.